Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this breakout session, and thanks for joining us. As we heard before, the digital world is really accelerating at an amazing pace for everything we do. There's a huge shift towards everything as a service. Most of us use subscription services in our everyday life, but I wonder how many of us think about what really happens behind the scenes with the payments and the management of these services. Everyone expects the customer experience to be seamless, and I guess today what we're here to do is talk about the subscription economy with one of our premier partners, Zuora. My name is Nathan Salisbury. I'm the current head of the channel partnerships business at Worldline Digital Commerce. Within our indirect sales division, we work with a variety of different partners who connect to our payment platform to enable the payments and the transaction flows on behalf of the merchants and customers. We're really happy to have Natalie get up very early from her San Francisco base this morning and present Zuora to us. Zuora, for those of you that don't know, are a market-leading global subscription billing engine and platform. So Natalie, welcome. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at Zuora.
Hi, thank you for having me here. Excited to be dialing in from San Francisco. And I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing Strategy here at Zuora. And my team, we own our own pricing and packaging strategy. I come from a deep background of subscription pricing and packaging strategies, having been at Oracle, head of the Oracle Marketing Cloud pricing strategy as Oracle was shifting from a transactional model to more subscription, headed pricing and packaging at Hired. They were a two-sided marketplace trying to shift from one-time transactions to recurring revenue as well. And I always wished I had a tool like Zuora. And so I decided to come and join Zuora, and here I am. My team also owns messaging and positioning for working with partners such as you and our alliances and our global network there, in addition to competitive intelligence and helping with our portfolio marketing.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Natalie, very much for joining at such an early hour. I guess the partnership between Worldline and Zuora has been in place for many years, formerly with Ingenico e-payments, and we process hundreds of millions of volume as a partnership. I guess, last year we did a big upgrade of our platforms together so that Zuora has access to the latest Worldline digital commerce platforms. And the vision that we share is really to create an innovative end-to-end solution for very large-scale enterprise merchants for global subscription processing, right? So perhaps, Natalie, you can tell us what kind of complexity exists behind the scenes and how are things managed from a Zuora perspective when it comes to subscription billing, and what are some of the trends you see emerging in this space?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually did a survey with the Harris poll, and I'm going to pull that up right now so you guys can see it on the screen. And they are a market research company that's been tracking people's behavioral patterns all around the world. And you can see on the slide here that the study showed that we're witnessing this massive change in consumer behavior. So if you look at the Americas to EMEA and Europe to APAC and Asia, 75% on average people worldwide are saying that they actually want to own less things and subscribe to more services, because the world now is shifting from this idea of ownership to the usership of products. And what we mean by that is people want the outcome of the product or service they use. So for instance, I don't own any DVDs anymore to watch movies. Maybe it's a collector's item now, because I really want to watch movies and be entertained. So I'm subscribing to Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, all these different streaming services. And same thing with music. I don't even know where to buy CDs anymore for music, right? We access our music through Spotify, Apple Music,
Sure.
Pandora. And so same thing with cars. People aren't owning cars, but they're subscribing to Uber or Lyft and taking cars, or SNCF in Paris. They're one of our customers. And we saw this really accelerated during COVID, especially as people were able to work from home. Some people were getting rid of their apartments and they decided, let me live nomadically and get a subscription to a hotel service, because I don't want to be in my apartment. I want to work maybe in Miami today or London tomorrow. Let me go stay at a hotel there locally around the world. And this idea of, some people, have this move to minimalism.
Exactly. Less stuff.
And Yeah, and it's really interesting because we're starting to see this really move across all industries as well, not only across the world. And it's what we're coining as the subscription economy. So you can see here, it's driving major business model transformation in every industry. So the automotive industry, it's not about selling cars, like I said, it's about getting from point A to B. Medical industry, people aren't selling medical scanners anymore, but they're trying to deliver those patient outcomes. And if you look at the technology industry, we know it's not about selling hardware anymore, but accessing to compute power, business applications. We saw Adobe make that shift from selling their CDs to actually just online access to their design software.
Sure.
And companies are able to successfully transform their business models, and that can do this are growing faster. And we're seeing them grow 5 to 8 times faster than the S&P 500.
Wow.
And during COVID, even we saw subscription companies grow and have little impact during COVID, as a lot of businesses were shutting down across the world.
Yeah, certainly. I think when it comes to maintaining growth in business, this is the key, right? And I think, it's really interesting to see that there's a whole range of industries that we wouldn't think of as being linked to a subscription business starting to emerge. The car subscription one is a great one. I'm using one at the moment, and it's a great service. You can give it up at any time. It's perfect. So Natalie, when it comes to that, and you see that businesses start to transition into these type of models, one of the things that we hear about as being particularly difficult is implementing different pricing strategies. Now, you're an expert in pricing strategies for subscriptions, and I'm just hoping you can give the audience today some insight into the common complexities businesses face when transitioning and managing subscription billing services.
Yeah. I've experienced it firsthand trying to do this on the ground at different companies. And I see there's two types of companies. So there are the companies that are born in the cloud. So you were born in subscriptions, you started out in that, and then the ones in transitioning. And I'll speak to the ones that are born in the cloud. I'll touch upon that a little bit first.
Sure.
And for those companies, maybe you started with a monthly subscription for your service, and this can be B2B or B2C. And then you thought, okay, let's do an annual plan, or let's maybe do a 3-year plan with some discounts, right? That's how typically people start in subscriptions. Then they start looking at the data and they realize, wait a second, our users actually want to pay for the usage and potentially, or pay as they go. And so some people will begin to shift and mix up their pricing and packaging strategy to say, all right, we're going to have a monthly or annual platform. Companies or people like it because that's predictable. I know what I'm paying. But I like a usage component as well because I find that very fair. Right. Sometimes I want to use more and dial up my usage. Sometimes I want to use less. We saw this during COVID, right? For me, I stopped going to the gym. I had a subscription to the gym. I couldn't go in. I paused my subscription and I dialed down my usage and moved to their online format. But yet I scaled up my usage of Disney Plus and added more users, my kids, right? I put them on my account. And so, having this ability to have that usage component and start introducing that, our data actually shows that on average, across B2B and B2C, companies that introduce 25% of the revenue mix to be anchored around usage actually grow faster than those that don't. Because consumers and businesses like that feeling of, I pay for what I use. The second group I want to talk about are those transitioning. And this is where we see a lot of businesses moving from those one-time transactions to value-based pricing models. And I speak to a lot of these companies and they say, value-based pricing. How do you get to your price point? I'm a manufacturer. I'm used to cost plus pricing. Here are the cost of my goods to create them. And then I mark it up with a margin and I ultimately sell that to my customer. How do I figure out price points with value-based pricing? And my piece of advice is the price point is the last thing you think about, because for value-based pricing, you have to understand your customer segment first. Who are you selling to and who are your customer segments? And then second, what value do they find in your product? And that becomes your value metric. So is the value miles driven when it comes to a car subscription? Is it email marketing messages sent, mobile marketing messages sent if you're in the marketing space? Or is it data stored, right, if you're a data storage company? And so that becomes your value metric, because that's how your consumer or your customer finds value in your product, and you're going to anchor pricing around that value metric. And then you come up with your use cases. How are they using my product? What are they using it for? And that becomes your packaging on the features that you package into your pricing. And then your price point is last. What's the willingness to pay, and are you going to offer any discounts or incentives or coupons, because that all impacts your price point. And so when you think about this, people then have to say, okay, let me think about my new pricing strategy. Let me talk to my customers, do some research, and then they come up with their 5 best ideas, and then they need to go and test their ideas. And so that's where the Zuora platform comes in, where people can say, I've got my 5 best new pricing ideas. Let me put it through Zuora, test it. And what we see is once you put that into our system, within 28 days for a manufacturer, they'll see that first subscriber, look at the data, and keep iterating on your pricing. Because the beauty in subscription pricing is you don't know off the bat, but you know what your best ideas are because you've done your research. And it's through the iteration and looking at the data and the insights where you can keep making changes to your pricing that you ultimately get to, the ideal pricing strategy for your customers.
Yeah, right. And it's interesting, when you think about pricing strategies and how that kind of links with the overall revenue models, right? Because you see this shift in revenue models all the time. Companies testing out different revenue models, seeing what works. And I think, when we were discussing this session yesterday, Natalie, you talked a little about the changing world of products versus services. And you gave a really great insight into some of the trends that are happening there. Do you want to expand on that a little bit and go into that piece?
Yes. And I do have some more slides here to show you guys. So let me open this up. And what we see, some of the trends here is, the subscription economy is really changing the way businesses are delivering these great experiences. And they're growing faster and they're more resilient because they're based on this different fundamental business model, one that puts a subscriber at the center of every industry. And every industry now is reimagining their processes. So take this example here, right? The automotive industry, we'll stick to that one because it's very familiar to everybody. As a manufacturer, you've been in the business of selling cars as this one-time transaction, very product-centric. And while you'll continue to sell your cars, we're not saying that business is going away. That business is definitely here. Your future business growth is going to come from this parallel business model of how do you begin monetizing ongoing experiences where you have to think through every aspect end to end of the experience of your customer, your driver, from vehicle tracking, roadside assistance if their car breaks down, preventive maintenance, right? We've all got to maintain our cars. We need insurance, tire or wheel protection. So you begin to think of all these services that are wrapped around the consumer. And as you transform from a product-centric to subscriber-centric business model, you've got to change 3 different vectors. And the vectors of change that companies have to think about are their data, their processes, and their agility. How do you reimagine all these end-to-end processes? How do you rethink your data? How do you bring in different agility? And a lot of people realize they can't achieve it on the systems that were built today for this product-centric view. And they need a new system purpose-built for subscriptions, kind of from the ground up. So I want to break down each one of these 3 areas a little bit more and explain what I mean. So first, let's talk about data. So the type of insights you need to deliver an engaging subscriber experience are entirely different. And knowing how many cars you sold before or how many cars you have left in inventory, your profit margins, and what you've made, that's not going to tell you who your customer is and what they may want next, because that was, you didn't even care who the customer was. As long as your car was purchased and you moved inventory, that was the end of what you thought about.
Yep.
But now we need different data, right? So you need subscription insights where the person is in the center, and that's constantly changing, and it's constantly moving. For instance, how many miles do they drive? Where are they trying to go? How much time are they spending in their car? And can you get that real-time usage data? That's really paramount in driving these ongoing subscriber experiences. We see that they've got 100 times more data because they're interacting with the real human being versus the data that the car used to give by itself.
And it really lends itself to the future of the quality of products and services, right? Because as soon as from a customer view, as soon as you're engaged with a company on a long-term commitment of some, or even if it doesn't have a long-term commitment, but you're constantly engaged with this company, they have a kind of duty to provide a service which is good and continually good. And I guess that feedback loop of data allows them to kind of fine-tune that a little bit.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. And something that I realized of the beauty subscriptions for the consumer and the buyer is that, remember when we used to buy products and you felt like it lasted a long time? Now you buy products and you feel like, oh, the warranty is actually perfectly the minute my product breaks, it's always right after that warranty. Yeah. And you just felt like products got cheaper, the quality was eroding. But in the subscription model, it's actually the onus is back on the companies to say, I want to build quality products again.
Exactly.
Because if my consumer, my buyer isn't owning the product and we're the ones maintaining it, I'm going to give you a great product because you just want the outcome of it. And we're starting to see these businesses build better quality, more robust products so that it doesn't break down on you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's switch it up a little bit and head towards the payment side of things, because as Worldline, we're involved very much in the back-end processing of all the transactions and collection of funds for merchants and from consumers. You know, the payments industry is really rapidly evolving, not only from a regulatory perspective, but innovation is really forcing change and disrupting, I guess, the traditional card-based payment system that you see in the US, especially in emerging markets. Like in China, for example, the e-wallets have really taken over. And in Europe, for example, we see products like open banking that are emerging and going to really disrupt the traditional models. So as a response, I guess we see the card schemes starting to invest in their technology, right? And coming up with things that like scheme tokens, where the chance of a failure in a transaction process is much less. And I guess with the overall goal of enhancing that consumer experience, right? Making sure that every payment you do is seamless and nothing goes wrong. Because I don't know about you, Natalie, but if I go to buy something and the payment doesn't work, it's the worst, right? You just want to leave the process altogether and abandon the cart, if you like. But, you know, on that point, how does Zuora handle these changes, and what kind of impact do you see the payments innovation having on the subscription economy?
Yeah, you bring up a good point, right? When you've got that failed payment, you can't buy something, it creates a really bad subscriber experience and you get churn. But electronic payments are huge. If you look at McKinsey, they noted that it's actually electronic payments are growing 2x faster than the global GDP. So it's a big space and it's very important to us. You know, that in addition to, you know, failed payments, having a collection strategy, we just rolled out our Collect AI product. But in order to address this, Zuora partners with some of the strongest payment providers globally. And this includes, you, and this is why we're partnering with you, is to make sure that we're ensuring that we're keeping up with prioritizing accordingly regulations happening around the world, schema changes and additions for both credit and debit cards, and tracking the adoption of global network tokens. And so we work and rely on you and the partner, because each of you are the experts in your space, and we're able to lean on you to provide us the opportunity to offer best-in-class solutions for our joint customers. So like in regards to open banking, right? It's a new space. And Zuora can reach those products like open banking through partners like you once you release it. And we see great value in that. And we'll be evaluating it with partners like you on how to best incorporate this into the Zuora platform for our joint customers. Yeah,
perfect. Thanks, Natalie. Look, I think for those of you watching that are interested in discovering more about what Zuora and Worldline do together, or interested in having a conversation just about how to transition your business into the subscription economy, or perhaps you have some ideas around revenue models, feel free to reach out. I'm sure Natalie and her team in the US and in Europe will be open to help. And as a partnership, we're more than happy to enable that conversation. So really, Natalie, thank you so much for joining. Is there anything you would like to add at the end as a closing remark, or are you ready to go and have your breakfast?
Yeah, I gotta go wake up my kids and feed them. But it was great to be here. We're excited to work with you. I mean, we've processed, over 147 million in payments together so far this year, and looking forward to do more. So if anybody wants more information, definitely reach out to, either one of us.
Okay. Thank you very much, Natalie. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yep. Thanks for having me here.
Thanks, Natalie.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I think we are going to wrap this one up. If there are any questions you have, please mail us directly or through your contact at Worldline Digital Commerce. Thank you very much for joining, and have a great day.